I'm driving the minimum speed allowed in the far right lane, and all these cars are whizzing by me, and I'm white knuckling it. And as I was driving towards an interchange, towards the exit, the thought crossed my mind that I could just drive. I could just not take the exit and drive completely off of this overpass. I was carrying around a suitcase of trauma and life experiences that I didn't know what to do with, how to heal, transform, and get on the other side of. The medication allowed me to step back and take a breath and say, okay. It didn't solve anything though. I felt like I had a hole in my soul from all of these things. I had to find a way that was different than what I was currently doing to unpack that suitcase. And I just looked up and I said, I don't know who or what is up there, but this isn't working and I need something different. And if you show me something different, I will do it. And if it works, I'll share it with anyone who's willing to listen. I was listening to YouTube at the time, and I looked down and there was something there in my feed. I thought, play. And she was talking about how what we're thinking in our minds impacts our body. It impacts our reality. What? I'm creating my reality? If I'm creating my reality and I am creating all of this in this entire experience, this is freaking fantastic news because it means I can create something different. How far can I take utilizing this power of the subconscious mind? Because at this point, you could tell me to put on a gunny sack, crack eggs on my head, and howl at the moon. If I thought I was going to get relief, I would do it. I started to get this idea, what if I could manifest a symptom-free taper off of my medication? How far am I willing to go to explore relief, something different, another possibility in my own mind? My name is Kat Cederberg, and I'm going to cry already. Sorry. My name is Kat Cederberg, and I am not a fan of labels, but if I had to give myself one, I'd say that I'm a way shower and a pointer. I take joy in pointing people back to themselves. So the journey feels long, kind of in retrospect. I feel like I've covered a lot of terrain in a very short amount of time that I've been on this earth. But it's been exciting. And really what I'm feeling called to share is starting from a very specific point on this journey. And that is a time when I was medicated with psychiatric medications. I was on 20 milligrams of Sapphirus, 1.5 milligrams of risperidone, 20 milligrams of Lexapro, 0.75 milligrams of Klonopin, 1,200 milligrams of Trileptal. Think that's all of it. And while the medication did serve me for a while, there came a point where it was no longer serving me. I made the decision to taper myself off of the medication. The Lexapro is what I started with. I did what would basically be considered a rapid taper, and that was very disorienting, and I had a lot of symptoms, and it was a struggle because I was working in corporate America at the time in the industry that I have my degree in. But I made it through. And then my next decision was to start tapering down the Klonopin because I was really impaired at work. And my psychiatrist at the time had me do a rapid taper of the first 0.25 milligrams of the Klonopin, and that was not good at all. um, I followed his instructions, but I had insomnia. I had a lot of anxiety. I had anxiety that I never had, and I found myself pretty compromised into a place that I felt that I was not delivering on the work ethic that I like to deliver at work. And so I voluntarily resigned so that I could regroup and figure out what I'm going to do next, get myself together, and then the plan was to go back into my career. At that point, I started looking for assistance, and I found assistance through online forums and some Facebook groups and things like that. And they were offering a lot of information on how to taper myself off of. I was not really getting any assistance at all from my prescriber at that time. In fact, my first prescriber actually fired me as a patient because I said, I think I'm over medicated and I don't think I need all of this medication and I would like to come off of it. They basically said, I can't do anything else for you. We're done. So the next psychiatrist that I went to in working with me, she said, I think you could probably, get off the Saffris and we can start there. But when the Saffris was over, she didn't really want to go any further. I decided that I was just going to need to continue to do it and not tell her what I was doing. And the accumulation of that rapid taper and almost a cold turkey off of the Lexapro and that first 2.5 of the Klonopin, I had some stability, but starting then the cut of the Saffris, things were kind of shaky again. I had a lot of symptoms, but I was finding ways to manage it. I was going to yoga and I leaned a lot on my faith, but it seemed like everything that I grew up learning and knowing about the faith, it wasn't enough, or maybe it wasn't working. It just wasn't delivering any relief, and I refused to believe that there wasn't something more or different. So I continued to sort of plug along. I eventually did get myself off of the Saffris. And then I decided I'm going to start in on the risperidone. And that was in the beginning of 2017. And I got a few cuts into that and I just hit a wall and everything just hit the fan. I mean, hit the fan in a major way. The cumulative effect of being in the forums and on the groups, I allowed that environment to impact me in ways that, in retrospect, were not helpful at all. I realized that I was buying into other people's stories, and I got to a place where I was struggling to delineate how much of this is impacting me and is my own thing, and how much of it is just reading about someone else's experience and then taking that on and being impacted by it. And I got to a place where I became very, very neurotic, and I started having, what would be labeled as OCD type stuff, very fearful, very panicky, very anxiety ridden. I had insomnia. I couldn't sleep. I was reading all of these horror stories and things. And while the forums have their place, for me, it was not helping me. It was just making it worse. And I was dragging my husband into the experience and freaking out about tapering schedules, and I need a new spreadsheet, and I have to go slower, and maybe if I don't cut the pills dry, maybe if I do, dissolve it and do what's called a liquid titration, maybe that would work. I just kept bumping up, and I could go no further. And I became very, very depressed and very suicidal. And one day I was driving to my psychiatrist appointment, the one that I wasn't telling that I was tapering off of the risperidone because there wasn't support there for that. And I was on the Dallas North Tollway, 6 lanes, and I thought, my husband's at work. If I can just get myself to the appointment, that was my only goal. And I'm driving the minimum speed allowed in the far right lane, and all these cars are whizzing by me, and I'm white knuckling it, and I'm sweating, I'm perspiring, I have sweat on my upper lip, my armpits, everything. And I could see that I was white knuckling the steering wheel, and I thought, I just have to hold on. And as I was driving towards an interchange, towards the exit, the thought crossed my mind that I could just not take the exit and drive completely off of this overpass. And it would be over. I would have relief. But there's something in me. I've always been this way. I'm kind of a fighter. When someone tells me I can't do something, it just makes me want to prove them wrong. And I thought, I don't know how, but I'm not going to do this. I went to my appointment, I came back, and I went on like this for several months. At the time, I was also seeing a naturopathic doctor. I had so many things going on with my stomach and my body. I learned later that, it was Klonopin related, how long I'd been on the medication, things like that. And I started talking to her about this frustration. It wasn't really in her wheelhouse, but she said, you know what? I know of a psychiatric nurse practitioner. She's open to newer ideas and new possibilities, and I'd like to connect the two of you. I connected with her, took my husband with me. Together we came up with a plan of, okay, let's start tapering off the medication, and we'll just see how you do. Let's just see what happens. And the agreement was, if things go off the rail, I'm willing to go back on the medication, but I want to see what it is like without the medication. And from the beginning, my desire was that not only am I tapering myself off of the medication, but I want to be healthy mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually in ways that I never was before. There's an idea in the community that I just want to go back to my life. I just want to go back to normal. I just want to get off these meds and be done. And that wasn't my attitude. My attitude was, there's a reason why I took these medications. Those narratives started to crumble, which contributed to why I decided to taper myself off. First it started with depression. That depression was because I was in a major in college that was not authentic to me. And I abandoned myself because I thought, I don't know if I'm ever going to get married. I can do this. I like it. Am I thrilled by it? No, but I'm good at it. And so that major afforded me a lifestyle and a salary that I knew that I believed at the time, in my limitation, that I could never have that type of an income or salary if I honored myself and I did what I really wanted to do. And so that's when the depression started. And it just continued to build from there. So I was put on an antidepressant, but that antidepressant made me feel sort of high and sort of unmanaged. And okay, it seemingly brought up my mood, but then it went into places that it was like, whoa, I can't rein this in. And so then I was diagnosed by another psychiatrist with bipolar disorder. And I realized that in retrospect, and even then to some degree, although I have a much more awareness now, that yes, that medication contributed to those behaviors and things, but what really was going on was that I was carrying around a suitcase of trauma and life experiences that I didn't know what to do with, how to heal, transform, and get on the other side of. I was doing all of the things that I was employing, all of the resources that society tells you to do. I had been in counseling. I had, weekly, I had gone inpatient, outpatient, intensive, outpatient, intensive. I was doing all the right things. I was the most compliant patient. I would hear all the time from my psychiatrist with my medication. I was doing all the right things, but it wasn't working. I had a lot of insight about why I got the way I did, why I was experiencing, why I felt the way I felt, but nothing changed. And the narrative around medication was, it's like a diabetic, and a diabetic needs their insulin. And if you don't have your insulin, you're not going to be able to manage your diabetes. Well, in my quest to just get my physical self together and working with the naturopathic doctor, I came to realize you can totally manage your diabetes with diet and exercise. You don't have to take medication. And so there were cracks starting to form around this narrative, and then awarenesses coming in that, yes, I was behaving a certain way and I was feeling a certain way. And it all came down to pathologizing normal human experiences that a person doesn't know what to do with. And so I realized that these behaviors and these patterns were maladaptive behavior and coping strategies that were not serving me anymore. And when I didn't know what to do with them, the medication allowed me to step back and take a breath and say, okay, it didn't solve anything though. It just made me apathetic. It just made me not care at best. And the longer I was on it, it was an insidious process. I lost more of myself. I didn't know who I was anymore. I couldn't feel emotions. I knew I loved my husband, but I couldn't feel that love because we were married before I was medicated. I had a head knowledge, but I couldn't feel. I seemingly felt like I lost that connection to God, to something greater than myself. And I felt like I had a hole in my soul from all of these things. And it got to the point where I had this suitcase that had all of this stuff stuffed in it. And the only thing the medication did was I sat on the suitcase and a whole bunch of duct tape, just a whole bunch of duct tape was wrapped around that suitcase to hold all of that baggage in place. But it didn't go anywhere. It just sort of band-aided it. And I knew that I was going to have to unpack that suitcase. I had to find a way that was different than what I was currently doing. When I came to Dallas, I got connected with a therapist, and he really started pointing me towards actual tools, actionable steps. We weren't just sitting there talking about things. And so that allowed me to feel like I was really contributing towards this goal. I can take control of this situation and start doing some things. But eventually I was bumping up again to, okay, I have tools to manage things, but it's really not, it's helping, but it's really not getting to the root and resolving things. So I knew that there had to be something deeper. In the throes of all of this tapering, my brother got married in Cancun. And at this point, I was really, really sick, really neurotic. I cooked and packed all of my own food in a little carry-on cooler to go to this all-inclusive resort and demanded that a refrigerator be put in my room, even though it was an all-inclusive, because I was having all kinds of reactions to the foods I was eating. I was freaked out about the products that I was using to wash my hair and putting on my body. And I mean, it was just getting really, really unmanageable for myself and my partner and everyone around me. And I didn't know what to do. And at one point, I was standing in my kitchen juicing, and again, thoughts of I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. I have to finish my Klonopin taper. I still have to taper the trileptal mood stabilizer. I have to finish the risperidone taper. My body is breaking down. I'm not going to make it. I have to do something different. And I just looked up into the ceiling, and at that point, I'd gone to the church for help. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know how to help me. They're like, I think you need to stay on your medication. And I don't even know who I was talking to, but I said, I don't know who or what is up there, but this isn't working and I need something different. And if you show me something different, I will do it. And if it works, I'll share it with anyone who's willing to listen. It was complete surrender. It wasn't giving up. That's different. It was complete surrender. And I was listening to YouTube at the time. I was listening to actually the pastor at a church at a mega church where I had been attending. And I looked down and there was something there in my feed. And it was something from someone named Marissa Peer. And it said, the mind-body connection. And I thought, what is this? Like algorithmically, what is this mind-body connection? This is new to me. And I thought, play. And she was talking about how what we're thinking in our minds impacts our body. It impacts our reality. And I was like, what? Whoa, what? What I'm thinking is impacting my body? And she gave a couple of examples. And then later on, I thought, yeah, when you're driving down the road, if you hear those sirens, you get this feeling in your body and you pull over, and it's this, because you have this thought, oh, I've got to pull over. Did I do something wrong? You're having all these thoughts that are eliciting this response in your body. And it seemed to be such a no-brainer in retrospect, but this was like, whoa, so I thought, whoa, huge revelation. And a couple videos under was something called Abraham Hicks. And I thought, what is this? And I just felt intuitively, I clicked on it. She said, do you know that you create your reality? You create your reality by the thoughts that you think and what you're focusing on. And I was like, what? I'm creating my reality? Literally, this is what I was thinking. And I thought, okay, I realize now in retrospect, this could go two ways. Somebody could call total BS on this, or someone could receive it in the way that I received it, which was, if I'm creating my reality and I am creating all of this in this entire experience, this is freaking fantastic news, because it means according to these people or this thing or whoever's talking, this lady, I can create something different. And I immediately set out to figure out, how do I create something different? I mean, I was hungry for, how do you do this? Because at this point, you could tell me to put on a gunny sack, crack eggs on my head, and howl at the moon. If I thought I was going to get relief, I would do it. So I now know that by releasing that resistance, I opened myself up to a new point of attraction to start having something different, what I asked for, come in. I just needed to get in alignment with it. I learned that it's my thoughts, it's my feelings, it's my focus. What am I focusing on? What are my thoughts? What are my feelings? And although feelings were hard to get in touch with at this point, I started to create sort of workarounds. For instance, I can remember what the feeling of X is. So I was doing my best to kind of cobble together these teachings and starting to apply them. And I started to feel a lot better very, very quickly, actually. And I realized that when I put that one step forward, that which you call greater than yourself, I wasn't comfortable calling it God at that point because of my history. I was calling it source, or that inner part of you, that higher knowing part of you came rushing to meet me in that place and started to individually guide me in ways that were very meaningful and very unique to only me. It was like, I know she's gonna get this if I give it to her exactly like this way, like that, you in ways you can't even make up. So to sort of test myself, I called into my awareness a book by Pam Grout called E Squared. And I thought, I'm just going to start testing this out. I want to find out, is it BS? Is it real? So I started doing some of the experiments in her book. And I was coming back from the health food store, doing my best to stay focused on, following all the rules that were laid out. And I decided to do an exercise about cars. And I said, okay, I want to see red cars. I want to see red cars. So I'm driving around on the road and I start seeing all these red cars. And I come back from the health food store and I said, I don't know, I'm still not convinced. Red is a pretty popular color. It's not like I asked to see yellow cars. And I rounded the corner and there was an elementary school on my left-hand side. And there in the parking lot sat 2 yellow cars immediately. So you can test a universe and the universe will deliver. And I just had more things like that. And some people will call it a synchronicity, but when you start getting so many things building up, it becomes undeniable that there's something here. I'm on the right track. There's something worth pursuing and continuing down the path. It came into my awareness, this idea of the subconscious mind in creating our reality, that subconscious, that below your level of conscious mind awareness, that also impacts your life experience. It impacts what you're creating in your reality, which I didn't let that get me feeling too paranoid or shaken about. But the part of the subconscious mind that really caught my attention was the power of the subconscious mind. So I came at it from an angle of just how powerful the subconscious mind is. It beats your heart, it blinks your eyes, it runs your, it digests your food. It's all of these things happening in the background. And I started to get this idea, what if I could manifest a symptom-free taper off of my medication? So I'm going to, some YouTube lives for some of these law of attraction people on YouTube. And none of them wanted to touch this question with a 50-foot pole. But there was one gal that said, if you've got that idea, it's possible. How far is this subconscious power going to go? I have to finish my Klonopin taper. I still have to taper the trileptal mood stabilizer. I have to finish the risperidone. maybe I could be hypnotized into not feeling these withdrawal effects every time I cut my medication. I came upon something called Psych K. Not only would I be tapping into the power of the subconscious mind, but this could be an avenue to unpacking this suitcase in a really meaningful way. I had my first Psych session facilitated with me. On the way home, I realized I didn't have any symptoms at all. So in this You Create Your Reality community, I learned that the subconscious mind plays a role in the creation of our reality. I started reading about how powerful the subconscious mind is, and that it handles a lot of things in the background that I was not aware of. I came upon the decision that I want to manifest a symptom-free taper off of all this medication. I started looking for information. There was nothing out there. No one was talking. It was like, I want a car, I want money, I want a significant other, all this stuff. Even just people looking for health, it felt out of alignment, because at this point I'm still thinking, but tapering medication is so special. It's so unique. How do I know that this is going to work? And I didn't. I had to blaze my own trail, you know? I just had to keep following. And I didn't get too hung up on the subconscious beliefs. I didn't get paranoid. I didn't buy too much into the limitation around that. I was more interested in this power of the subconscious mind and what could it do for me in this situation? How could it help me? So I got the idea, maybe I could be hypnotized into not feeling these withdrawal effects every time I cut my medication. Like, how far is this subconscious power going to go? If people can be hypnotized into believing that they've been burned by a cigarette when someone touches, that's a physical manifestation. It's a physical injury to that person, all from the power of the subconscious mind. So in my search for a hypnotist, I came upon something called Psych K. And when I started doing more research, there was someone who had had a Psych session, who had experienced a sexual assault, and they were talking about the results that they had from this Psych session. And I thought, not only would I be tapping into the power of the subconscious mind, but this could be an avenue to unpacking this suitcase in a really meaningful way. And so it went beyond just go in there and program me with something. It allowed me, from what I could read and understand, to be in my power and be conscious and choose what those goals were. And so I Googled for a facilitator, and there was one less than 10 miles from my house. So I went up to her website, and I knew immediately, this is it. And I signed up for her 10-hour overhaul package. Let's do this. I'm going all in. I found this at the end of 2017. So at the very beginning of 2018, I had my first Psych session facilitated with me. I had been holding on all of the cuts. I wanted to experiment with reality creation. I wanted to be totally stabilized. I still had symptoms, though. I still had a lot of withdrawal symptoms, and I barely got myself to the appointment. But on the way home, I realized I didn't have any symptoms at all. I didn't have to white knuckle it down the Dallas North Tollway. I could actually go 80 in the middle lane, which is the standard speed on the tollway, without, completely comfortably. And I thought, something is hugely different. And the next day at noon, I went to my 12-step meeting like always, and I felt like a square peg in a round hole. And I thought, I understand, I know, but I can't relate to this. This feels so foreign to me. It was total cognitive dissonance. I can't explain it. I don't know, but I still had relief from my symptoms. And in the first 5 minutes, I was like, I don't belong here anymore. I don't know how, I can't explain it. I don't know why, but I don't belong here anymore. At my next Psych session, I resolved an eating disorder that I had since elementary school. And I'd been inpatient, outpatient, in the whole mix of everything I had going on. And I knew why I had picked up that eating disorder. And it seemed so foreign to me. Like, how was this ever a thing? And I said to the facilitator, I don't know what you did. And she said, I didn't do anything. It was you. It was you healing and transforming you. And if you're ready for, I came to realize, because it's you using a tool to tap into you and your own power that you are born with, and you forgot that you had. Forgot on purpose, but you forgot that you had. That if you are ready for a quantum leap, you'll get a quantum leap. If you're ready for a crumb out of the loaf of bread, that's what you'll get. But I was so beyond ready for quantum leap that's what I got. It was nothing short of that. And after the second session, I said, I don't really have any words. And she said, I teach this. I'm an instructor. And I said, when is your next workshop? I went home, I told my husband, and he had seen such incredible change. I took him with me. So I learned to facilitate with myself. And that was the beginning of my healing, because what I realized was that nothing pokes at whatever you've got stored in that subconscious programming like tapering off of your medication. And when I was able to heal and transform myself, and as the late, great Dr. Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that is one of the things that the Psych process gave me the ability to do for myself. But there's also things happening at the physiological level. So that Psych process, within that protocol, it's called a balance process. When we have life experiences, they cause us to pick up beliefs, to form beliefs that are then continually reflected back to us. We create perceptions. We create a lens that we're looking through as we're going through life. And two people could have similar experiences and form completely different beliefs and perspectives about it. It's how someone can, multiple people can witness a car accident and have completely different stories, because we all have these things that we've picked up. And these beliefs cause us to create stories and beliefs about ourselves that aren't accurate and aren't real and aren't true. And so that process also allowed me to start peeling away all of that stuff that I had picked up and attached to myself. It's like a beautiful statue from Michelangelo, and you've put all this stuff on top of it. And that the psyche process allowed me to chip away and remove that and return to the perfect, whole, complete, there's nothing wrong here person. And when we have these experiences, they often can get stored in one hemisphere of the brain or another, predominantly. And so, depending on what we've picked up, we could be completely logical about it, but have no access to the attributes of the right hemisphere, the emotion and the feeling and the whole of it. Or we could be completely emotional about it, stuck in the right hemisphere attributes, and have no or virtually no access to the logic and the reasoning. And so when we come together in what's the balance process creates a whole brain state, we now are able to walk around and function in the world, having equal access to all the attributes of the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, by opening up the corpus callosum, which is that brain bridge, and allowing a rewiring from a physiological perspective to a whole brain state. And so the subconscious mind, instead of saying, I've got a file based on what I'm picking up in the environment or whatever the perception is, I'm making those correlations that we know nothing about, that's getting triggered all over the place during the tapering process, that are now being resolved. And so, in my experience, the withdrawal symptoms that I was experiencing were not from the medication at all. Because once I resolved whatever was getting poked at and triggered, because the trigger is the treasure, is what I've come up with. There's gold there. When you resolve that, all of my symptoms went away. Now, the key was I needed to resume my taper and see what happens. So Psyche is a spiritual process that has physical and psychological benefits. Spiritual process in that it takes you back to, it returns you to the remembering of who and what you really are by resolving the illusions via limiting beliefs, subconscious programming that we've picked up. It transforms and heals that and gives you a new perspective. It's a freeing from all of the self-imposed limitations. I'm never going to be able to heal while I'm still on medication or while I'm still tapering my medication. That's a limiting belief, because the body knows what it's doing. And when you start telling the body through the mind-body connection and resolving whatever's happening at the subconscious level of the mind, you start to realize that that's just a story that you're telling yourself and you're buying into. Because when I finished all of my tapers, a question that I would get is, how long did it take you to heal? No, it didn't. I healed the whole way down by continuing to balance with myself on the things that were getting poked at. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need to know what that subconscious programming is with Psyche. You just need to know what you want to experience instead. We don't need to dig up anything. We don't need to analyze anything. You just need to know, what do I want instead? What would I need to believe to be true to have a new experience? My body knows what it's doing. It knows how to heal. You know, the work of Dr. Candace Pert, Molecules of Emotion, that Your body has everything it needs to bridge that gap of cutting each medication. It's got everything in there. And there's a story, and I bought into it too, and it is a valid experience if that is what you are having, because I did have it as well, that she has proven, and others have now too, that as you take away that medication, your body knows how to fill in that gap. It knows how to bridge the gap between what has been introduced and what has been taken away. If you stop telling yourself a story that isn't true. And as long as you're telling that same story, you're going to be recreating that same reality. There's a book by Claude Bristol, and these are things that were just brought to me. They were the answers that I needed, called The Magic of Believing, where a reporter was writing a story, and there's a man who is entertaining his, I believe the context is he's wanting to elicit funding for a project, and he's imbibed on too much alcohol. And this reporter was in a place where the host did not realize he was being witnessed, but he literally talked himself into sobriety in the mirror once he realized he had imbibed too much before he went out and started giving his presentation and soliciting. And I was like, whoa, that's the power of the subconscious mind. There's a religious denomination in the South that regularly drinks strychnine poison and lets cottonmouth snakes bite them on a regular basis because they believe, no, they know, it goes beyond believing. They know that they will not die. So I'm thinking, if people are drinking strychnine and getting bitten by cottonmouth snakes, they have seeded the potential for what I also am capable of. Now, was it scary experimenting? Of course. I didn't do anything crazy like be bitten by a snake or drink strychnine, but I started to tell myself the story. My body knows how to bridge that. It knows what it's doing. It knows how to compensate for down-regulated receptors. They're not fried off. They're healthy and beautiful, and they know how to upregulate. They know what they're doing. And I don't need to eat a special food, and I don't need to eat a special diet unless intuitively I'm being called to that. There's no limitation other than the limitation you place on yourself. And that's the truth. You are the jailer to your own self. I sat down and I wrote out all of the things that I was experiencing that I no longer wanted to experience. I saw my receptors in my brain as this beautiful green, healthy, vibrant jungle with all these beautiful flowers and life thriving. And my goal was, my definition of a symptom-free taper was, tapering is just something happening in the background. That's it. That's all the meaning that it has. And that is what I created. You don't want to be running away from illness. You want to be walking yourself to health and well-being. What are you focusing on? Because whatever you're focusing on is what you're going to continue to create and experience. So a mental diet is just like you would be conscious of what you're putting in your body, what you're feeding your body. What are you chewing on in your mind? What are you feeding yourself? What are you focusing on? Because whatever you're focusing on and whatever you are feeding is what you're going to continue to create and experience. I put myself on a mental diet. This is not my work. This is an author's work. So I call it a mental live it. I liked the idea of scripting, which is in this You Create Your Reality law of attraction community. And I sat down and I wrote out, to give myself some clarity, I wrote out all of the things that I was experiencing that I no longer wanted to experience. Understanding how the subconscious mind works, you don't want to be saying don't and not and won't and all of these things. You want to be working yourself into health. You don't want to be running away from illness. You want to be walking yourself to health and well-being. So I created a script and I wrote it out and I started reading it every day. And then I got the idea, what if I record myself doing that, reading this to myself? And then I found some music that supposedly a certain megahertz will bring well-being, vibrational well-being into your body. So I played that in the background while I read my ideal life experience. And then every day I would sit and I would listen to that recording at lunchtime. And I would visualize through my own eyes, I'm going out, I'm shopping, I'm under bright lights, I'm going to dinner with my husband when he wants to. I'm not worried about what I'm eating. I'm working myself into health. So I visualized with this every day, and I saw my receptors in my brain as this beautiful green, healthy, vibrant jungle with all these beautiful flowers and life thriving. I also played that recording in the background because I know the subconscious mind is always listening. It's always aware, even when you're asleep. And I did it for many reasons. Once, to keep my focus on where am I going. Two, to continue to keep it active in my vibration, my point of attraction, to draw more solutions, more health, more well-being into my reality. And my goal was, my definition of a symptom-free taper was, tapering is just something happening in the background. That's it. That's all the meaning that it has. And that is what I created. I started tapering my trileptal because I got a health diagnosis. The trileptal was creating hypnatremia in my body, and I'd been on it a long time, and I had ended up in the ER a couple of times. I didn't know that I had hypnatremia. I ended up needing to go to an endocrinologist, and he had done lab work, and he said, if you don't get off this stuff, you're going to die. And so I needed to engage in a rapid taper, but I was already working all of this. And as I was cutting the medication very, very quickly, I was a little scared. I was apprehensive, but I thought this will be a test. And it went pretty well. I mean, I had a few very minor symptoms, nothing like what I had going on before. And at this time, I had found Psych-K. I was balancing with myself. I was looking at what was coming up and addressing it. And I mean, the last therapist I worked with, I had 32 pages of traumas and dramas that she had me list out. With the balance process, you get to a point where it's not a one-to-one relationship. So all of these things were getting cleaned up. I got to the point where things on the list were they just took care of themselves because of previous balance processes. So that was the first real test of, is this real? Because I'm not tapering anything at that point. And then I decided I had gotten down to, I think it was maybe 300 milligrams. The blood work was good. The doctor was like, okay, you can stay there if you want. And I started just following where I was being led. What resource was I being pointed to next? What bit of confirmation data did I need that I was asking for and calling forth to support me on this journey? And eventually I started tapering the Klonopin again, and I didn't have a single symptom. In fact, I was hiking at a national park in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You'd never know I was tapering anything. So then the question becomes, if I'm doing all of this, what is my experience like in relationship to the experience in the collective? So I had made some tapering friends in different places. And I realized pretty quickly that that environment was not serving me. It was, from my perspective, it was the antithesis of what I was moving towards. Lots of disempowerment, lots of limiting beliefs. I know I was there, lots of experiences that I was no longer experiencing. And when I started to, you get excited. I mean, this is incredible. And I started to share with some folks that I was in connection with that I really hadn't been in connection with. And one person called me an outright liar and said I was making it up. No way possible that I could go from being this sick and this incapacitated to, this is just something going on in the background. I'm now training to be a psyche facilitator. I've started my own business at some point. I didn't know it totally at the time, but what I realized was I was creating my own swimming pool. My own swimming pool to swim around in, a swimming pool that was going to support me in this new information that had been brought into my awareness at the point of surrender and opening up to doing something different. And I was okay with that. So I just continued to swim in my swimming pool and make it bigger and set up lounge chairs. And I had a whole resort going on. And I loved it. So while it is a valid experience, one of the purposes of this film is to show that there's another experience, there's another perspective. And either you're open to the idea that you create your reality or you're not. And wherever you are is perfect. It is a choice to move out of limitation. It's a choice to say, I don't want to be a victim anymore. We try to manage the leaves on the tree. So you've got to go to the root. You've got to unpack the suitcase. You've got to deal with your stuff. And then you grow and you evolve to a place where there is no suitcase. There's not even a bag. One of the things that is prevalent in the community, the tapering community, and this is really applicable though to lots of other gateway experiences, we try to manage the leaves on the tree, whether it's, I'm going to take magnesium at night to help me sleep. I'm going to, don't take magnesium, that could rev you up. No, I took an antihistamine and that helped me sleep. Don't take an antihistamine. I did this or I took that. You're just managing the leaves on the tree instead of getting to the root cause. And there's several things wrapped up in that. I don't know what's happening at the subconscious level. If you believe the magnesium is going to work for you, it's going to work for you. If you doubt that the magnesium is going to work, or you think you're concerned about having an experience, that's what you're going to create. Okay? So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is that we are all coming from our own life experiences, which created perceptions, which created beliefs, which created a vibrational place which are creating filters that each of us is looking through. I have no idea what went into your life experience and is creating the filters that you have. And so to put these blanket statements, or this person or that, or doing this or that or whatever, moot point. You're treating the leaves. You've got to go to the root. And it is my experience and my contention that you've got to unpack the suitcase. You've got to deal with your stuff. Otherwise, you're just it's window dressing. You're fooling around with things that are not really meaningful and impactful. Do they seemingly manage the situation? Sure. But that's not really going to get you to dealing with the stuff. And I want to say this too. When I started cutting the duct tape off, i.e. tapering the medication, there's this beautiful thing that you start to wake up emotionally. And I have journal entries about this. It's a beautiful time to have enough awareness to look at your stuff without having your emotional system be overloaded, because it's still blunted. And I believe that it's a divine orchestration to allow us to have enough emotion and be connected enough as we're tapering off without overwhelming the system with a floodgate of whatever. And if you're not tapering and you were yanked off cold turkey or whatever your situation is, it's still, it's more imperative, I would say, to deal with whatever that stuff is, because it's like a pinball machine and it is all getting lit up and triggered and going off all at the same time. It hit you like a tsunami. So there's blessings in slowly tapering. There's a lot of opportunities in this process to heal and transform, and it is not for the faint of heart, but we have so much support if we just step into it. It absolutely requires getting curious with yourself and being willing to sit with yourself and ask, what is this about? What is this really about? And being honest with yourself, really honest with ourselves. I think most of us know when we are BSing ourselves. If we're really honest, we know when we are BSing ourselves. And we don't have to have the whole picture. We don't have to know every single aspect or every single ingredient in the stew. But when you open that door to say, oh, there's carrots in there, whatever that label is. Okay, let's start with the carrots. The other thing I would like to mention about symptoms, I don't like the word symptom because it has a vibration attached to it. I like the word reaction. So when we have these reactions and we're tapering, the tapering experience is very myopic, very myopic. And we automatically attribute to whatever we're experiencing, the reactions, etc. We automatically equate it to, I cut my dose, or I'm tapering my medication. It's that those reactions are a manifestation of something else. It's either something held at the subconscious mind, a thought that we keep thinking over and over again, that we're creating it. It's not usually, again, in the confines of reactions, what you think it is. In fact, in my case, it never was. It never was the cutting and the tapering of the medication. And when I looked at a more metaphysical, as within, so without perspective, and all of the healing and transformation and reperceiving, I didn't have a single symptom again, or reaction. I didn't have a single reaction again. It is a choice to move out of limitation. It's a choice to say, I don't want to be a victim anymore. I don't want to be victimized. And now also, or feel like a victim. Another thing that I think is important is that when we have these really impactful gateway experiences, and again, I'm speaking mostly from the tapering community aspect, is there are a lot of payoffs or perceived payoffs to staying the same. You might have to go get a job. If you are feeling well, if you are creating a reality like I did where you are symptom-free of coming off your medication, you might have to get a job. And maybe the place where you pressed pause with that medication was, I'm not happy in my career. I studied something that I don't want to do, and now I got to look at that and I got to face it. And it's the path that is easiest for me is to stay where I am. Or I might have to set boundaries with my spouse or my partner, or I might have to address something, whatever that thing is, and I feel I can't do it. I don't want to do it because it's going to rock the boat and they might leave me, or they might cut off financial funding from someone who's supporting you during this process because they don't like, not because you're creating a reality where you don't have the symptoms anymore, but because you set a boundary with them, it made them angry, and now they don't want to support you financially. The list is endless. And so it's not the path for everyone. Healing begins when you make the choice to say, I choose to heal. I choose to look at my stuff. I choose to open myself up to something different than what I've been doing. If what I'm doing isn't working, if you're not doing anything, then maybe do something. But healing is a choice, and healing is a process, and it can be a really beautiful and transformative process that I would never, ever change for a whole list of reasons. We have been taught as a society, someone or something knows better than we do, to the point where many of us doubt or stuff down or ignore that inner knowing. We have what I call these gateway experiences. And for some people, maybe it's the loss of a person or a relationship. Maybe it's a health crisis. Maybe it's a financial crisis. One way or another, we're going to be called forth into an evolution. You can either go the gentle way, or you can wait until the whole damn house is on fire. So if you're seeing something in your reality that you don't like, it is up to you to change how you think about it, how you feel about it, the meaning you're giving it, the story you're telling. The thoughts that we think create our emotions, and then those emotions create a vibration. When you become aware of this and you start to consciously do something different, you will start to see results pretty quickly. You start to realize, I do have power over this situation. I've talked about how not being my authentic self was one of the reasons that I landed on medication. I was out of alignment. I did not know how to handle, and I didn't know what to do with not being my authentic self. And so the apathy that I received from being medicated gave me relief until it didn't. It was this intuitive place that there's something more, and I'm just not getting it for some reason. I couldn't give it a label of limiting belief. I couldn't give it a label. I couldn't give it any label. It was this intuitive knowing that I'm being called to something greater. And this experience, I now say, we have what I call these gateway experiences. And for some people, maybe it's the loss of a person or a relationship. Maybe it's a health crisis. Maybe it's a financial crisis. But I feel that our souls come with a plan, and we can kick and spit and do and whatever, but one way or another, we're going to be called forth into an evolution, an expansion, a growth. And you can answer that little knock, or you can ignore it, or you could answer the louder bang or ignore it, or the doorbell could ring and you could continue to ignore it and ignore and ignore. But I think we all know, if we're really honest with ourselves, we've all had the little knock that we ignored. And I definitely did it. I self-abandon on a fairly regular basis and in some really impactful ways that were part of that suitcase. But I now realize that those experiences got me to such a knowing that I will never, under any circumstances again, abandon myself. I don't care. It at one point was the perspective of that was really painful. I don't have that perspective anymore, thanks to Psyche and my own ability to heal and transform myself and re-perceive and evolve to a grander perspective. But you can either go the gentle way or you can wait until the whole damn house is on fire. I no longer wait until the house is on fire. I answer that still small voice, the little knock. So whether you're tapering or you're having another, what I call, gateway into your evolution and expansion that you're being called to, I encourage you to answer the knock before the house is on fire. It takes some it takes courage to say, I know what this is about, and then actually start to move in the direction of resolving it before it gets really big. So creating our reality is just that. It's every aspect of our reality. So the thoughts that we think create our emotions, and then those emotions create a vibration. And based on the universe, one of the universal laws, like attracts like. So if everything is vibration, one vibration is going to be in resonance with another vibration that was created by your emotions and your thoughts and what you're focusing on and all of those things. So if you're seeing something in your reality that you don't like, it is up to you to change how you think about it, how you feel about it, the meaning you're giving it, the story you're telling. And so if you stay on that trajectory, you're going to keep creating the same thing over and over. And the more you do that, the more momentum you have in a direction that you don't want to be going in. In my experience, though, when you become aware of this and you start to consciously do something different, you will start to see results pretty quickly. If it happened instantaneously, we'd all be dead. So there is a lag time, and you're going to see a little bit of old creation for a bit. And so as you start to experiment and see the correlation and test it out for yourself, you start to realize, I do have power over this situation. It doesn't mean I'm controlling other people and things outside of me, although there is an aspect of that too, because you're creating the version of that person that's showing up with you. You're creating the version that that person is in your reality. And when you start to apply, there are so many teachers out there that can teach you how to do this, and there's lots of paths, but the fundamentals are the same. And when you start showing yourself how much you can manipulate and create the experience and the day-to-day life and reality that you desire, your mind will be blown. In other words, the more you understand who and what you are, which is a spiritual being having a human experience, and if you say you already know that, well, then are you demonstrating it? Are you so aware of your vibrational, where you are tuned vibrationally, that you can make the change and see the results quickly? In other words, are you applying it and demonstrating it? If you watching this and you say you know this, and you start to realize that we are in an environment, and we did this on purpose, I believe, from a soul perspective, to remember who and what we are. And this process, or another potential gateway process, will show us who and what we are and what we are truly capable of. We will remember just how powerful we are, and our creative, our ability. We are creators, and it's happening all the time. The difference is, are you doing it consciously and intentionally, or are you unaware like I was? We have been taught as a society, I'm in the United States, but I feel it's worldwide, that someone or something outside of us knows better than us, has the answers for us, and we are taught / trained into someone or something knows better than we do, to the point where many of us self-abandon, to the point that we doubt or stuff down or ignore that little knock, that inner knowing, intuition, whatever word you want to call it, and it causes self-doubt. But the thing is, with like attracts like, when you start getting into a place where you are in resonance with self-doubt, that is what's continuing to be created in your reality. So we can never forget that. So it's going to be reinforcing, because that's what we are in resonance with. You've got to do something different to get something different. You have to have a genuine desire for change. Even if you don't know what that change is, or what it's going to look like, or how to do it, just setting forth the power of intention, that I want to do something different. I want to start trusting myself. I want to start listening to that inner voice and not being afraid to actually do it, and not care what anyone thinks about me actually listening to it and then doing it. It's not for the faint of heart, but it will serve you so well, because the more you do it, it's like a muscle, first of all, and secondly, you become more and more in resonance with your sovereignty, because that is what you are moving toward creating and practicing and applying. And so you will start to be more in resonance with what is authentically me. I've already collected some data that I can be myself, and there could be people who are angry and not happy about it, but I feel really good, and I'm going to stay the course, because I know that through the law of attraction and reality creation, that my feeling good is the most important thing. And that can sound selfish, especially in society, and it is selfish, and we need to be selfish. But as you continue down the path, your level of awareness and consciousness will evolve to a place where you can be so in your knowing and in your sovereignty that there's not a hint of the malicious or malevolent selfishness involved at all. Nothing is more impactful than personal experience. So I can pretty much guarantee this, that once you start having a taste of this and how you feel and how empowered you feel, again, not from like an egoic, malevolent place, but from a self-empowered place, you will get momentum in that direction, and you will start to realize this is the way we're meant to live. I need to trust myself, and I need to trust whatever that thing is that I call greater than myself is guiding me. And once you start to have those experiences, I write them down. I call it making deposits into my faith bank. I don't need the faith bank too much anymore unless it's something really, really huge, which is rare. But I can look back and say, oh, this solution, and it was so perfect, and I could have never imagined it, tried to figure it out, tried to create it. Like, it was so curated to me. And when you write those things down, you start to create a record for yourself to show your conscious mind, hey, this is it, man. This is it. A, and B, if you become discouraged, you can go back and look at, why would something be different now? I am being supported in my creation when I step in and I do my part and I work with the universal laws. This is it. And whether someone else is doing it or not, and this is again part of the evolutionary process, is that I don't know their path. And I need to honor their path, because otherwise I'd be trying to play God in someone else's experience and their creation, whether they are aware of this information or not. I'm aware, and I need to honor where they're at. I stay in my centered place. I'm not rocked. I'm rock solid. I would accuse him of not loving me or not caring for me or taking care of me. He was healthy. I could not see it at the time.
I'm not enabling. I'm not rescuing. I'm going to do what I can to support. The outcome is going to be far better if I let it unfold than if I try to fix it.
I could not fathom how he could stay married to me in the overly medicated. I was literally all but drooling and comatose on the sofa.
This may not work out. This may not work out. But if I try to handle it and manipulate it, it's certainly not going to work out.
Him being healthy helped me be healthy. It was two engines going in the same direction.
The participation in our relationship is my favorite part, because for years he wasn't there.
Mike got his wife back because he didn't marry me medicated. I would encourage anyone who is in the tapering process to really pause and be honest with themselves about what they really can control and what they are hopefully learning to control in their experience, because many times we are putting a lot of pressure and a lot of stress on our partners. They feel overwhelmed. They feel in over their heads. They feel, and this was expressed to me by my spouse, that they don't know what to do. They may or may not be on their own path of evolution and exploration. And so they're trying to hold their own. Maybe they're going to work and they're bringing in the resources while you are tapering, if you're blessed enough to be in that situation. We need to try to get out of ourselves and out of the myopia and the machinations enough to give your partner a break. It is not their job to support you. If they are, they're doing the best they can, but it ultimately is your job to learn how to support yourself and come into your self-sufficiency, and anything your partner does for you is just a bonus. And that's not going to be comfortable for a lot of people to hear, because we get angry when someone isn't doing what we think they should be doing. But the truth of the matter is, you're only causing your own distress on top of all the other distress that you may be experiencing, you're only adding to that distress by thinking that someone else should be doing something for you that they are not doing because they're not willing, and we need to accept that, or they're not able to do it, and we need to accept that, or they just don't want to, and we need to be okay with the other person's sovereignty. We need to find a way to be okay with it.
I'll say this, that I was in, I'll say, recovery or a process of spiritual growth for years before the tapering episode we went through.
I think it's organically come about that he's contributing.
Years before we started to go through this tapering episode or process, I had my own spiritual growth process in recovery, and if I hadn't done that, if I hadn't had the growth over those several years before this, I wouldn't have made it through the tapering episode, and I don't think we as a couple really would have made it. Partly because we would have been, Kat was on this spiritual process, and we'd have been divergent. But since I was already kind of on that track, I kind of understood where she's going, and I was fully supportive of that aspect. And some of the things that served me well is I learned that I cannot be an enabler. I cannot be a rescuer, because I had done that in the past. And the reason that I had done that was just what Kat was talking about. I had outsourced my responsibility to take care of myself. I had outsourced that to everything external to me, including Kat. It was very unfair for me to do that, but I didn't see it at the time. But through that growth process, I realized, like the power of me, as Kat says, a return to myself, realize that I don't need that. I accepted responsibility for myself and took care of myself. And once I did that, I was able to be okay with uncertainty. I was able to let Kat be Kat and have her own experiences. I'll just say that I'm on the same page with Kat in this spiritual journey, because I know that I am not the form that you're looking at right now with this allergy outbreak and all this. That's not me. I'm a spirit that you can't see, okay? And that spirit. I like to frame it in the message of Jesus. I'm not particularly religious, but I believe that is a message. That spirit, that consciousness that I am, is the kingdom of God within, the Christ, and that spirit within me is one with what Jesus called the Father, one with the universe, one with the source. Okay, and for me, that knowledge, that returning to myself, is the truth that sets me free. So I don't think there's a lot of difference between our two frameworks or viewpoints. It's just in different words. That's what I had to say.
And I have to say too that, and I shared this with people in the tapering community before I had my realization while juicing, was that I got very angry when he wouldn't rescue me, or when he did set a boundary, and I felt I would accuse him of not loving me or not caring for me or taking care of me. But again, had he done that, he was healthy. I could not see it at the time, but he was healthy enough to set those boundaries with me and to stop enabling and stop doing and acquiescing, which allowed me to have my experience. So thank God he was healthy enough, even though it made me angry. And he took a lot of crap for that, and abuse, but he held the line. So kudos to him, because him being healthy helped me be healthy. It was two engines going in the same direction down the track.
Yeah, and that tornado, I was like changing the tires while the bus was rolling, during that time. So I was maybe I hadn't internalized everything completely. So at times I had to, kind of go by rote. What's the healthy thing I should do here? And that kind of came off a little bit cold at times. I could see that, but also that combined that with I'm not enabling, I'm not rescuing, I'm going to do what I can to support. And I found out another thing: detach with love. It doesn't mean you got to leave a relationship. It means you have to take your own responsibility and let the other person take theirs.
Each carry your own, what you are responsible for.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What has been your favorite part of witnessing Kat's evolution?
My favorite part is her return to her personality and her just vivacious, outgoing personality. And everybody loves her. And, and I just, the participation in our relationship is my favorite part, to be honest with you. Because for years, it wasn't there.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's back.
My brother said to me, I got my sister back. But before that, Mike got his wife back because he didn't marry me medicated.
I tried to do practical things during the tapering. I made spreadsheets, I made schedules according to her goals. I kept track of them. And
graduated cylinders, pipettes, measuring devices. What is the ratio if I want to withdraw 1 milliliter out of 50 milliliters, and how much medication goes in the solution? I mean, you had to be your own scientist, really. I mean, he I think also ran interference for the worst of my neurosis on the wedding trip. It's a fine line between where am I going to facilitate the best presentation of my partner without fully outright enabling or covering up. There's a certain level of interference maybe that needs to be run where you love that person and you don't want them totally dangling out there on the edge, completely exposed. Exactly. But you also don't want to be pretending that this person is really messed up. They're unhealthy. True. And
there was a lot of that on that trip, yes.
Yeah.
In that 10 years of growth, I had taken the baby steps to realize, hey, if I just, quote unquote, let go and let God, that's a cliche, but I mean, if I let things happen naturally and don't control and manipulate, my outcomes were so far better than anything before. And I mean, part of your talk was about how does somebody get into it. I was thinking, just try a little thing. And it'll give you that little bit of confidence, that little bit of faith to do something a little bit bigger, and then a little bit bigger. Mm-hmm. And pretty soon, I got to the place, and this kind of worked this way. When she went into tapering, that was a big one, okay? So, I mean, I'm at the place where, okay, I've seen this play out enough times that I have a good level of confidence that the outcome is going to be far better if I let it unfold than if I try to fix it.
I asked him one time, I could not fathom how he could stay married to me in the overly medicated, that was only one of the challenges, state that I was in, because before I had started tapering, my body was breaking down. I was literally all but drooling and comatose on the sofa watching reruns on the classic sitcom channel. And I lived like that for a good while until my body started to break down at early 40s. And I forget what your answer was. I think you said I needed to just let you have your process and hope.
Because, in those days you're referring to, I had the thought of, this may not work out. Mm-hmm. This may not work out. But if I try to handle it and manipulate it, it's certainly not going to work out. Now my confidence is really high. It got boosted that much higher by this outcome. And I just followed the practices that I had learned, and it eventually became internalized. Now I don't have to check a sheet for most, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always going to be in process, but
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't need the Oracle card anymore.
exactly.
I don't need the pendulum anymore, right? I don't need the whatever it was, but it's okay. It's part of the evolution.
Yeah. I mean, I remember days when I used to sit for 30 minutes trying to figure out what is the healthy thing to do here. And now it's just
automatic. It's who you are. It's who you are being. Once you apply it and you demonstrate it enough, it's just inherently who you are. Yeah. I feel like I remembered you saying that so many times you were hoping that I would sort myself out, that it was your desire that at some point I would hope. Yeah.
I mean, I believe me, I had the temptation to get in there and try to fix and try to rescue. And I used to call it chain myself to the radiator. So I couldn't do, I forced myself not to do that. And it's like you said, it's a fine line, because I also wanted to, do what I could to support
not
her.
abandon me.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's where the nuance.
Some kind of balance.
That's where the nuance comes in. You need to learn. You need to discern: is this enabling, or is this is genuine support that I am willing to provide without any expectation?
Exactly. That's key too, because like in the days when I outsourced my self-care, because that was the payback. Somebody take care of me. Somebody take care of me. Right? So it wasn't, I was doing business. I wasn't doing relationship.
Yeah. But I think also, backing up to what I said about the discernment, is that ideally, when we provide the support that we're providing it without expectation. Because if we have expectation, inevitably we will be disappointed, angry, expecting reciprocity. You can't do that. You can't do that.
Similar to what Kat was saying about everything changed when she basically took responsibility for herself. The same thing happened to me. I mean, that was the absolute turning point in my progress, was when I realized I am actually abandoning my responsibility to myself. It is my responsibility that I am not fulfilling it. I'm doing the exact opposite. And,
yeah, it's a hard sell. I
was pretty good at self-medicating before that it took place. And it switched like a light bulb. I no longer had any kind of,
self-medicating
need to self-medicate, because there was nothing to medicate, because I was taking care of myself.
Mm-hmm. But that is a hard sell, right? You can't sell a program. You can't sell. Pointing someone back to themselves and saying you need to take radical personal responsibility, there's no money in that. And it's a hard sell, right? No guru, no. So that's why I like to call myself a pointer. Really, I can give you the data around how to create your reality, but ultimately, it's a pointing back to yourself. When someone steps into their power, they learn to take personal responsibility, and I'm even going to say radical personal responsibility. You are never again a victim, because you know that life is happening through you and for you and not to you. In our sovereignty, we learn to stop outsourcing our lives to everyone and everything outside of us, and to start living from the inside out, instead of the outside in. This is an invitation to return home to your lowercase s self and your higher case s self. So in this process, I sort of created a blueprint for myself, and I've shared it with others about how to get yourself the jump starting to move one's self into a place where they start to become resonant with solutions for them, starting to show themselves that they are creating their reality, giving them a taste of how powerful they are, showing them that this is real and it's not a bunch of BS. It sort of feeds all those things, and it creates a place where they can start to turn the ship around and go in another direction. So it serves a bunch of purposes. It's not anything new that's out there. The way I created mine that I share with others is specifically geared to people tapering medication because I know that unique gateway experience as it being my own. But the goals are the same, and I clearly state what those goals are. So if you're drawn to achieve that goal in another way, perfect, because now you're already tapping into, I'm going to be guided in the ways that are the most meaningful and resonant to me. Maybe it's meditation. I have a friend that gets her best answers on the golf course. In my own process, the universe would speak to me through nature. I would find all kinds of feathers in places that feathers shouldn't be, or that type of feather shouldn't be. But it was confirmation. I'd ask a question. Am I on the right track? Should I cut this medication at this time? Should I, whatever? Can I double the speed of my Klonopin taper? And I would get an answer in a way that is so crystal clear that no one and nothing else could ever begin to compete with. So in the beginning, if you need a tool, that's fine. But once you hone that skill, you will never need to go outside of yourself. Now, if you start on the inside, whatever that connection is, whatever way you get answers, you will learn that. You'll learn that. And the tools will help you bridge that gap of how that greater part of you, or God, or source, or the universe, or whatever you want to label it, you will learn how it communicates with you. And you'll move to a place where you just know. You just know what is right for you. You just know what your next step is. You know what you're being called to do next. And you don't have, and you also settle into a place of, I'm completely at peace just knowing that this is the next step. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to honor that, and I'm going to do that. And you won't be flailing about with looking externally. Well, the scientists say this, and the media says that, and my best friend says this, and my spouse says that. The only time I go outside of myself is if I'm called to, but I start on the inside first. And so it's about living from the inside out, tapping into your own inner wisdom and letting it guide your life always on every subject. And living from the inside out is, I don't let the outside circumstances and world and whatever it is I'm seeing rock me on my inside. I stay in my centered place. When I stepped into this new possibility and potential and awareness that I received that day in the kitchen and ran with it. What if? What if this is real? What if there's something to this? Yes, I wanted to heal mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, but the only awareness I had at that time with a return to self was my authentic self. But as I went along the path, I realized it's something grander than that. It's a return to the capital S self, the divine self, the realization that I am a divine being that forgot on purpose and came to remember the capital S self. So I got way more than I realized I was ever going to get. Tapering is just one gateway experience to this level of awareness and to get you to your sovereignty. When someone steps into their power, they learn to take personal responsibility, and I'm even going to say radical personal responsibility. You are never again a victim because you know that life is happening through you and for you and not to you. You live in the and not the either or, because nuance breeds discernment. In our sovereignty, we learn to stop outsourcing our lives to everyone and everything outside of us and to start living from the inside out instead of the outside in. You learn to tap into and live from your inner guidance system and never, ever abandon yourself again, no matter what. You move to a place of gratitude and appreciation for every single bit of it. This is an invitation to return home to your lowercase s self and your higher case s self.